that's sort of like a enlightenment when I was traveling. And so we're looking at mountains, we're looking at, all this beautiful rocks and then branches of trees like the forest when there is storms coming through. Um, they've been there for centuries of lives. And when there's storm coming or any really hard weather, they would dance with it. If you started to against it, you see they break themselves, and we just have to, swimming and go with the flow. But sometimes that's very, very hard for people who are conditioned from different conceptions that would understand. And for me, it's almost like breaking all of the conditions and becoming in a Buddhism way of emptiness. Then we can start to take more things in.
Hi, I'm the self-development coach, Johnny Lawrence, and welcome to the Self-Development Podcast. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Freda Yuan. Oh, see. Freda,
That's fine.
Will that be okay?
Yes, totally fine.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Freda is a professional coffee taster and buyer. She's currently devoting her career as the director of coffee at Origin Coffee Roasters. And that's actually located in Cornwall, but it has offices elsewhere, London, for example. Freda is the 2017, 2018, and 2020 UK Cup Taster Champion. And the 2017 Worlds, she came third, which is unbelievable. So congratulations on that. It must have been a heck of a rush. She's also the author of the sensory awareness book, Sip and Slurp, which we'll be talking about also. Freda is very accomplished within her industry. However, what does it take for a person to reach success within their industry? What sacrifices have to be made? What are the impacts on someone's mental health? How can you support yourself to stay motivated and continue to grow and develop? These are the kind of questions I'm going to be asking Freda today. So how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah. And you? You're
I'm
okay?
good too. Yeah, it's not raining, which is always a bonus in the UK, right?
Yeah, you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate your time today. And I've spoken, as I said to you before we press record, I've spoken with Tom about you. I've heard loads of stories, good ones, I promise. Tom is the person that the founder of Origin Coffee. And he's been strongly encouraging us to talk for a long time because you've had quite a journey. So for the people that maybe haven't come across you yet, could you tell people a bit about yourself and your journey so far?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Taiwan, and I was working in hospitality most of my life. I still do, I believe so. But working in Taiwan is a little bit different, and in the culture, hospitality is mostly seen as low-ranked industry.
Right.
Not prosperative. Is that the word? Like people won't look. People will not look up to the industry basically. Understood. And it's very low rank. And so, but I've been enjoy working because I love talking to people. I love working with people. I love working with food. But for me, I feel when I live in Taiwan, the sites is very narrow because it is very small country, and eventually I decided I wanted to go traveling. So I went to Australia. I worked in Australia for 2 years for working holiday visa, and then I went back home, and I feel I wanted to do more. So I came to London 9 years ago to work in coffee, and that was initially my plan. I want to learn to make coffee, go back to Taiwan and open open a cafe in Taiwan. That was the plan. Right. But then once I arrived in London, a lot of things changes. I realized opening a cafe is too hard for me. I'm also sort of wanted to stay in London, even though it is potentially very, very hard and it's a different environment, and my entire family was in Taiwan as well, and I knew nobody here in London. But I feel in a way, this city gave me a new identity that I can be myself and I can be real. And that's when I decided, okay, I want to stay here. And it took me a long journey after my decision. I studied to get a visa because I need a legal visa to stay in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't find anyone to get married, so I couldn't get the spouse visa. But I managed to get a job sponsorship through 2 companies. And now I'm on my settlement visa, which is a really long journey. And as a sort of like an Asian woman and working in the industry now, I'm extremely proud for what I've done. And it is a really tough road, but I feel it was all worth it, because if I didn't get a sponsorship visa, I was going to just go home, go back to Taiwan, and not work in coffee anymore.
Right. Yeah, that would have been a real shame as well, wouldn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Something you said there was really intriguing, and I think it's something that a lot of people in varying ways experience. And it's like you said, coming to London gave you the opportunity to find a new identity, to be yourself, to let go of things. What do you think it was that was limiting you before that?
That's a very good question. I feel it was the culture where I live in Taiwan, very traditional in Chinese culture. There's always conditions that believe in the society and believe in the culture. For example, you have to make a lot of money, you have to own the house or a car, you need to have a good partner. I'm sure in each country they all have this type of perception. But I feel, when I came, the first thing I came to London, why so many people were dressing from their personality. There are so many colors, there's so many different outfits, and people were truly expressing themselves. But when I was in Taiwan, when I am sort of a boyish girl, so many times I'm less ladylike. I like to do a lot of sports, and I don't wear dress. I mean, I do wear dress now, but I don't behave like a girl. But what does that mean by behaving like a girl? And that was something, I was trapped in until I came to London. I feel liberating that you can talk about your sexuality, your gender, literally everything. And I feel that's something I realized, wow, this is truly amazing. And I was on my journey of recovering. That was sort of like the beginning of my journey recovering from depression. So I was truly amazed by how you can really, in a way, be yourself and accepting that you are different, because we are all different.
Absolutely. You know what? It reminded me, I was speaking to a client a little while ago, and I used an analogy about plants. And it's like how you can take a plant and you can put it in an environment, and depending on that environment will depend on how that plant does, right? So, plants need light, plants need the right temperature, plants need water. So if you take a plant that doesn't need so much water and you water it too much, it can be damaging. If you put it in a place that's too dark, it can be damaging. If you put it in a place that's too hot, it can be damaging. And it sounds to me like it was your environment that was cueing you to behave the way you was, or to feel the way you was. And when you changed your environment, you started to blossom, to nurture those things that you didn't even realize. Like, if you think about it, as a plant, if it wants light but it's put in the dark, it doesn't know that, right?
No.
So when you went to London, it was all of a sudden, it's like, I love the way you expressed the way people dressed to express themselves, how open they were to talk about things. It must have been such a daunting experience, but also quite liberating at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in my culture, in my stated, oh, those are quite a crazy outfit. But here it might be, oh, it's a normal outfit. It's expressing, using the word, even though those words are different and then defined by different culture and background of people. And that's something I found that's fascinating. And I love the journey. I think it was a great journey to go through.
It really looks like that. And what's interesting about what you're saying is most likely, you know, I don't know yet, but we're about to find out. Hopefully, it sounds like it was a very challenging and very difficult journey. Probably not one you would have chose. But it's so lovely to see you here going, you know what, it was great, you know, because it just shows you can't always choose the most fun or the most desirable option, because sometimes that doesn't push you, right? Doesn't push you forward, you know. So I mean, it's unusual, I suppose, that for someone to pursue a passion in coffee, you know, and I just love that. I mean, what was it about coffee that really made you pursue it as a career? What was it about it?
Initially was human contact, you
Right.
know, greeting, hello, how's it going? You can be friend with them or you don't, depending on the customers, but you know, you're serving something that it's necessity almost every morning, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I love just interacting with the customers. That's my initial thought. But then once I started to really get into the rabbit hole, I realized I love it because a lot of reasons, but one of the main reason and my main passion is being able to taste coffee. So that translates to coffee sensory. And I remember, so I had bulimia and depression, and both coexist mostly. I mean, for my condition, but other people might be other addiction. But for me, I always purge after a big meal or a lot of food, or sometimes purging 3 times a day.
Right.
And purging sort of like damaged my palate. And when I started to taste coffee, I realized a pattern. When I purge the day after or that week, I couldn't taste much coffee when I need to fine tune the coffee flavor, because making coffee is like baking cakes. You need recipes and changing different variables to make it taste better. So when I started to look into it, I noticed my palate doesn't really as attuned as when I don't hurt myself.
Yeah.
So that's the first awareness of, oh, I really like tasting coffee and it tastes really good. So if I want to explore more, I need to stop hurting myself. And that was the first sort of like initiate, you know, makes me feel, oh, okay, something needs to be changed.
I've got goosebumps because in the way that you said that, it was almost like coffee saved you.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can say that.
Yeah, that's what it feels like from what you said. That's like I say, it gave me goosebumps. It's quite remarkable. No, that's a lovely story. I mean, well, not lovely, you know what I mean, but the ending was really great because I mean, like I said, it's unusual and to pick a career in coffee, or to know you're going to pick a career in coffee. It's something that I would imagine a lot of people fall into, you know, because it's quite niche. But to recognize that you had that palette there and that purging was damaging that palette, that's really quite amazing. What a lovely way
Yeah.
to have that happen. So I mean, you've made constant progress in your career, you know, and it's actually been a lot shorter in time than I thought it was. You know, what you've accomplished usually takes a lot longer, I would imagine. But I mean, you must have had like a consistent approach or attitude to the way you do things and to the way you make decisions. I mean, what would you say that is? What would you say that consistent attitude or approach is?
I think it changes at different stages, because when I didn't have that much awareness or conscious about myself and my behavior, for me, it was more like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Should I
Yeah.
change something? But not, but that goes through different stages of understanding myself, learning and developing my head strengths, my brain strengths to identify things, or you should say mental strengths to identify the problems or the situation that stop me from being great or stop me from being myself. And that tune into recently, my new mantra is sort of like show up for myself
Oh,
in many decisions. That was translated directly from yoga, because you know I would go to yoga and my teacher will always say, oh, thank you for showing up yourself on the mat. But that doesn't have to just be right there. You know, it can be expanding to many things in life. And that's my like recent mantra right now, and that helped me to go through so many things. Like sometimes I'm getting lazy of running, and then I was just saying, do the right thing, like show up for yourself. What would be the best for yourself?
Yeah, that's the great question, because you're not
Hmm.
holding on to any concepts there. You're simply asking yourself, what's the best decision that I can make for myself right now? And
Yeah.
that might be on that day, in that moment. I don't need to run. I need to sleep. I need to eat.
Or rest. Yeah.
Yeah, rest, and I like
Hmm.
that, because you're not sort of trying. It's like asking a loaded question, but
Hmm.
not, if that makes sense. I love that you talk about being adaptable. You talk about becoming self-aware. You talk about a willingness to evolve, and how you sort of work in a real harmony with your environment. And what I mean by that is, like, you're saying to me, I'm looking out for the cues where I might not be doing so well, or where I can improve. And I think that's really good advice, that being adaptable, that being self-aware, that being willing to evolve, and also to sort of observe your environment instead of trying to control it, I suppose. Because
Yeah.
it's like the ocean, when we drop a boat on
Mm.
the ocean, we're not trying to control the ocean. We're just trying to navigate it. And I think too many people create that illusion of control only to find themselves disappointed. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have another analogy I can share it with you.
Brilliant.
So that's sort of like a enlightenment when I was traveling. And so we're looking at mountains, we're looking at, all this beautiful rocks, and then branches of trees, like the forest, when there is storms coming through.
Mm.
um they've been there for centuries of lives, and when there's storm coming or any really hard weather, they would dance with it, or they just
Yeah.
coexist with
Yeah.
the weather.
Yeah.
But if you started to against it, you see they break themselves. And like it's sort of like we just have to swimming and go with the flow.
Yes.
But
Yes.
sometimes that's very, very hard
Mm.
for people who are conditioned from different conception that would understand. And for me, it's almost like breaking all of the conditions and becoming in a Buddhism way of emptiness. Then we can start to take more things in.
Yeah. Are you Buddhist, just out of interest?
No, but I
No.
realize I'm sharing many like spiritual side of it
Mm.
and conceptual side of it. My grandma, she is a Buddhist, and she shared a lot of script with me when I was young, and she forced me to memorize it, and I still do. But I didn't realize those concepts were exactly the thing that I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Buddhism is close to my heart. I stopped short of calling myself Buddhist, but it never ceases to amaze me how many times in my life the Buddhist texts do have a very helpful
Yeah.
perspective. But I mean, you that analogy is wonderful, that you say about the way you describe them as dancing
Yeah.
with the weather. But I think it sounds to me like what it comes down to is that a lot of the time, human beings, we hold on to expectations and assumptions. We make
Mm.
assumptions about how things are going to go, only to be disappointed about them. But were we right to make that assumption in the first place? And then there's that expectation. We have an expectation of other people. Sometimes we don't communicate that, and sometimes it doesn't happen, and it ends up in a difficult situation. I just love your perspective. I'm beginning to get a real clear picture of why you are successful as you are. It's real pleasure to talk to you. We're going to change lanes a
Thank
little
you.
bit now, all of a sudden. What's been one of the most challenging things that you've encountered on your journey?
Mm, I think the hardest was to realize, oh, I had depression,
Mm.
and then started on the first journey of recovery, because that's, like in Taiwan, this type of condition or situation is a taboo to talk about.
Really?
Yeah, like we value dignity a lot.
Right.
So we wouldn't tell people, oh, like I have some mental illness problem, or I have depression.
Mm.
And people would think that's not a good thing to share, or they will start to judge you.
Right.
And so that was really hard for me. Like, I was trying to express that to my mom, share that to my mom. She said, oh, you're just fine, don't worry about it. Those are something that it's just basically there's not a safe environment for me to really understand what's going on with me, because by that time, this roughly is 12 years ago,
Really?
not many sort of like mental health awareness was raising in Taiwan, and so it was really hard to talk about it or find people to really understand what exactly was I going through. I've been to sort of like a clinic, shrink clinic, but basically because of the session will be really expensive. So I would go through like the government's healthcare system, but they basically just give you pills instead
Right.
of talking to you how do you take care of yourself. And after one pill, I realized I become really slow, and that's not really what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest bit, I guess, to figure out what is the best way for myself to go through this. And there were not much resources as well.
So what was it that made you realize that you were suffering with depression? What was the one point where you're like, right, I think this is what's happening?
It was Googling.
Yeah, good old Google.
It was
Dr. G.
Yeah, back then was Yahoo, I think.
Oh, okay, right.
But Google helped as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just doing researches, understanding what does that really mean. And particularly bulimia was something that was not very outspoken as well.
Of course.
Yeah. And in Taiwan, in most of Asia, they will expect you to be super skinny because that's how supermodel and all the celebrities are.
Right.
And most of the languages saying hello, greeting, hello, have you eaten? How's
really?
things? Yeah, that's how we greet.
Wow. Okay.
That's in our culture. Everything is about food, so it is hard to detach from that food and then body image culture.
Yeah.
And it just never really easy to find a way. And then looking into websites, understanding exactly what's going on helped me a lot. Particularly I found yoga websites or yoga training centers information are very helpful, because it's more like a spiritual side of tackling my, I would say, situation. I never say problem, because that's problem is a negative thing to say. So tackling my situation.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just love that perspective. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
No. So then looking into yoga, starting to get more spiritual side of understanding, and that's how I started. But the beginning was super, super hard to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, that is extremely interesting that even in your greetings, food is mentioned. It must have felt, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it must have felt slightly shaming every time it was mentioned, or, it almost forces you to keep it a secret a little bit, doesn't it?
It's a stressful way, because they would implicate it. Oh, you've been eating well recently. That means you gained some weight.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, wow, how complicated. It's just some utter minefield of like of complications, isn't it? It's like it must have been extremely triggering. So after some time in reflection, what lessons have you been able to take away from that challenging time in your life, do you think?
I've learned to be nice to myself.
Great advice.
Because all of those conditions or all of those beliefs I had was the program from my culture, was the program that created through my upbringing or through my background. But that doesn't mean that's the true me, because when I first came to the world, I didn't carry anything. So I was a blank sheet. But then because I pick up so many things, that changed me, my perspective, changed to another person. But then if I be really patient, take care of myself, and be nice to myself instead of when I think that I did something wrong, or when I be really upset or anxious, I started to break down the idea or the conception of, listen, like all of those things I'm being anxious about are just the condition that I carry with me. It is okay to be this. It is okay. And we are recovering one step at a time, doing things one step at a time, because there's no rush. You know, we're not going anywhere. We're just here.
Yeah.
And that's what I have learned.
Yeah, you're like a Yoda. Loads and loads of wisdom. I mean, what it makes me think of is our phones. You know, we have our phones, and they're a piece of hardware, and on that hardware is software that creates our experience when we use them. But that software needs updating regularly, and sometimes we don't look at that and we don't update. And then what happens when we don't update our phones? Our phones stop working right. Yeah. Apps don't work very well, and things switch off and turn off and don't save or whatever. And it's all because we haven't been aware that we needed to update. And I think what that thing that needs updating, in my experience working with my clients or even myself, is our value system. Because our value system is what we think is right and wrong, the way that we see the world. And quite often, you know, I mean, I can certainly sit here as in my 40s and say that my value system is vastly different at 40s than it was when I was 20. For a start, I didn't have any children, and I was probably a lot more selfish, you know, but my value system had to update. It had to. And had I tried to ignore that, I might have been the 40-year-old chap that goes out drinking all the time, or goes out enjoying himself and neglecting their children, you know, for example. So, yeah, I love that you're just aware of, like, you need to continue to update, you know, you need to continue to be aware. It speaks to that original thing you said about adapting and self-awareness and willingness to evolve. It's a really great trait and cracking advice to give someone, I think. So you mentioned your recovery from bulimia and depression in your book as well, Sip and Slurp. Could you talk about what you did to sort of become stronger? Because I noticed there's a thing I think it's in the acknowledgements, and you mentioned not just coming through it, but coming through it stronger. And I really admired that comment. You know, what did you mean when you said that?
I think it's more like mental strength, in terms of, before, you know, I self-published Sip and Slurp. And I had this idea many years ago, and I finished the script. I couldn't find a publisher to publish for me. But then I didn't thought about that for the project for a while, until COVID hits. I was unfurloughed. I was extremely unhappy. I feel really low. And suddenly my cousin suggested, oh, why don't you write a book? And I thought, oh yeah, I already have one in my hard drive, right? But then going through the process of, where can I find a publisher? That's the hardest bit. But then I decided to look into self-publishing, because I have a lot of time to explore. And I started to find a sort of designer on a freelance website, found photographer through Instagram, and we now become really good friends. And three of us just work things together, and I become a project manager. I printed the book, sold the first 1,000 copy in 1 week. And
wow.
After that, I realized, I can do everything. It's not that I cannot do it. It's just because I have never done it before, and I thought it was really hard, and the process was hard. But I stopped myself from being better in the beginning, and become stronger in the beginning, believing, having this, like you said, mindset, that I can't do it. And now I think everything is possible for me because it is the mindset shift, really.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, amazing. Have you ever heard the story of two wolves that live inside
No,
you?
tell
You never
me.
heard? There's a story someone told me once about two wolves living inside you. One focuses and nurtures and creates animosity, fear, anxiety, worry, concern, hatred, envy, things like that. And the other wolf is concerned with compassion, moving forward, being optimistic, aspirational, inspirational, motivational. And they both live inside you, and they're both fighting for dominance. And the way the story goes is that a child is told this story by a wise elder, and the child asks, "So which wolf wins? Which wolf is more dominant?" And he replies, "The one that you feed."
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And I think that's
Wow.
what you did. You fed what you wanted to
Mm,
feed. You fed the
mm.
optimism. You didn't just focus on, you didn't focus on the problem, you focused on the solution. Because the
Yes.
problem will only get greater if you focus on it, but so will the solution.
Yeah.
Right? And it sounds like that's what you did. You're real inspiration, man. Really are. You know,
Thank you.
it's like I say, you took a situation that is very easy to see as a negative or something that's less helpful in life, and you've turned it into a positive or something that's more helpful in life and become stronger. And
Mhm.
are you proud of yourself?
I could not be prouder
Oh, I love that
of
response.
myself. I just can't believe I can publish the book. I
Yeah,
still can't believe I did it, but I really believe that I am really capable of doing many things now. And
yeah.
that's a great feeling to have. And it's really encouraging.
Yeah, what I love the most and what I see, and I'm lucky, I get to work with lots of people that have had successes in very many areas in life. And I sit here talking to you now, and you're the director of coffee for Origin Coffee, and this is your book. That's amazing. That's like brilliant. Like I'm so, and to hear you say, I'm so proud of. I just love it. I really do like that. I love it when people are proud of themselves. It makes me happy. but I mean, you've experienced sort of incredible highs. You know, like competing in championships and sort of winning 2017, 2018, 2020 UK coffee tasting championships, and then coming third in the world
Mhm.
in the world. That's quite a big thing. Coming third in the world. Um, so you've experienced all them highs, but and also there's your book as well. But how have you handled the lows?
The lows mostly it will always happen anyway.
Of course they will.
Um, for me is understanding that firstly this will always happen. Understanding I do need time for myself and also be patient with the process. I think for me as well, sort of like identify, I know when I'm really anxious or fidgeting and I'm rushing through and I'm eating really fast, I
Mm,
realize, okay, that's my sort of like time that I need to relax and I
mm.
need to take care of myself instead of rushing through it.
Like a
And
cue.
so, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
cue.
yeah.
Exactly. So give myself more time to take care of it, and also be patient again. Through this process is how I deal with it. I also meditate, but it's not because of the low. It's I do it all the time, every day,
Mm.
to help me go through the highs and also go through the lows as well.
Yeah. Yeah, meditation is something that I'm extremely attracted to, but for some bizarre reason, I have a lot of difficulty with it. I'm trying now, I'm working through it. It's a process, right?
It is always a process, but whether you find the right one to fit into your lifestyle as well, I think
Yeah.
that's extremely different because there are so many like headspace apps and so many different method that whatever you think works the best for you. And I started doing meditation in mid 2019,
Right.
and this is designed for busy people, twice a day, 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes each time, so twice a day. And I never stopped doing that
Amazing.
because I found a benefit to my life, to my physical and then mental body. So I feel really encouraged to keep going. So
Yeah,
it really depends.
yeah, I think people are motivated by results, aren't they? And if you're seeing results from something, you're going to keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least if you see the results you want anyway. One of the things that strikes me is that, you know, you must have to manage the impact of your career, your life. And I would imagine you visit some pretty hostile environments at times. You know, the coffee industry is sort of scattered across the world. And when I was one of the stories that I think I was told by Tom when I went to visit the Origin factory, and he took me through the process, you know, from the beginning to the end. I was absolutely blown away by the coffee roasting part, like the finite amount of time that you can go from roasted beans to ruined beans was like that would distress me on a level that I wouldn't be able to do that job at all. I'd be manic. But I mean, those hostile environments, he was talking about deliveries of coffee with bullet casings in, you know, and it just shows like a crazy like environment. And I mean, I'm sure it's not the wild west or anything, but it must be quite scary. I mean, how do you manage the impact of the traveling? I mean, the traveling alone must sometimes be quite stressful, but then visiting those hostile environments and just the pressure of your job as well, it must have a massive impact on your mental health. How do you manage that?
Yeah, a lot of traveling. We work with 11 coffee producing countries. Sometimes that means 11 countries to travel each year. And yeah, it's very stressful.
Yeah.
Particularly, you know, I remember in the beginning of 2019, there was a crash from Ethiopia or Kenya to Ethiopia. And then I was traveling by then and I was like, oh, this is scary, you know,
Yeah, right.
all of the stress. But I really enjoyed it because I can see different countries, I can see different mentalities, different culture. How I work through is firstly working with really good partners that would support my work, and then working through compassion, understanding the local culture, understanding what people really need, and potentially how we can provide impact through buying coffee.
Right.
But for more stress side would be meditating.
Yeah, meditation sounds like a really big tool for you.
Yeah, or you know, through yoga, running, where if I can, you know, I did run in Rwanda before, I did run in Colombia before, so it's doable.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful landscapes.
I can't really compete. I've only run like around my neighborhood, which sounds quite
Well, Cornwall is not bad already.
well, it's
Better
beautiful,
than,
yeah, but it doesn't sound
yeah.
like what you've done. But it's not about that, is it?
No.
Like I'm curious now. We may even edit this section out because I don't know what you're going to say. But like, have you got any like stories from sort of road stories, ones where you were like, that was a scary moment, you know? Have you got any stories that you can share or not really?
Scary, I wouldn't say that there are a few, but I think it's more like how the trip can make me more compassion or looking into different life. There's one that I was in Ethiopia, and then you know the condition in Ethiopia is vastly like way behind than you know us or any other, for example, Kenya. So Ethiopia has no road outside of the city, and then it's very dirty, and they're still struggling to get clean water. And I went visited sort of like a village, and I went to see their water source, and there's a spring, and I saw little kids were carrying like a trolley, it's a wooden made trolley, and then with a yellow, like iconic yellow bucket, but there was no road, so it's really wanky, and they couldn't move the trolley easily. And if the trolley went off, the water will spill as well. And the water spring was just not very well managed. Their kids came to me, they look really unhealthy, they have gray matters under their nose. For me, it was the stressful moment was, can I touch them? Are they clean? Are they healthy, and will they pass some disease or any
Yeah.
other things to me. But then the compassion side of it is, I want to help. I want to get better water resources for them. I want to buy more coffee from Ethiopia, because that's where what I can contribute. Well, that's where we can support. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was the situation.
I mean, like you said, for managing that stress, you sort of, you look to support, to have compassion, and then there's obviously your meditation. But there must have been a real humbleness about realizing that you're not struggling, but you're having an experience that's a difficult experience, but you're just a visitor. These people live here,
Exactly.
and that must be quite impactful for you.
Yeah, I feel it's almost like I'm so lucky. I have warm clothes, I have food every day, I have shelter.
Yeah.
And then comparing to other people, it's they're so different, their lifestyle are so different than us, and then we are already pretty lucky enough. And in other way is, when we talk about fair, for example, there's fair trade in coffee, or coffee terms. Sometimes you say fair trade, they're paying a fair price to the producers, but the fairness, the term fair, is based on the Western society of, oh, that's fair price. But in each coffee producing country, each country has its own economical turmoil, they have its own political issues. The fairness means fair to each country, to each culture, to each layer of complexity. And that's something that I feel strongly that through my work, I need to support that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Like the fairness, like who is it fair to? I love that. I love that, because you're right. You you can strap a fair trade label on something, and everyone will think you're doing a good thing, but it's only a good thing if it's fair to the right people, or it's fair to everybody, or there's a compromise of some kind. It's not just fair to the person who's getting rich, I suppose. So yeah, that's a really great perspective. You know what? This has been such a lovely conversation. I'm so grateful. I just wanted to ask sort of one last question, really, and that is, do you have anything you'd like to pass along that can help people with their self-development?
Yes, I that this is my personal sort of tools when I come across things. I would ask a few questions to myself. Firstly is, when I've done something, and when I have certain feelings, I would ask myself, why did I do this? Or where is this beliefs coming from? So then I can start to figure out, oh, for example, I had bulimia. Why did I do this? I did this because I believe I need to be skinny, and then you ask the next question. So why do you believe in this? Because my culture and society promotes being skinny.
Yeah.
Right. And then you started to ask the next question, do I have to do this? Is this something that I believe in? And I started to deconstruct my entire understanding and beliefs of my old belief. And I think that's very powerful, to ask myself these questions.
Yeah, so sort of challenge your belief systems, challenge where things come from. I mean, in coaching, what we're always encouraged to do is we're encouraged to never ask why, because why can make you go internal, can make you blame yourself, can make you create more problems. However, the method that you take is to ask what.
Okay.
So it's like, if I say to you, why did you do that? You might say, because I'm an idiot. You might say that. But if I say, what led you to do that? And you might say, well, I didn't like it, or I didn't want it there, or it wasn't suitable, or it was offending me, or whatever it is, you get more towards the impact of something and how to change it, that more than sort of blaming yourself or blaming somebody else, which generally doesn't get you anywhere, does it?
Yeah, I like
But
that. It's a good approach.
yeah, it's just a little bit different, but it sounds like you naturally take that what approach anyway. It does sound to me like that's where you end up. But as I said to you, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad that Tom encouraged us to talk. And
The pleasure is mine. I really enjoyed it.
oh, me too. Me
Thank
too. But I
you.
mean, where can people find you? Can you please talk a bit about your book and where people can get it? I'm showing it on the screen, although this will be on a podcast, but it will also be on YouTube, so people will see it. So talk a bit about your book and where people can find you on social media and your website.
Yeah, so you can find me through my website, which is fredayuan.com. It's FREDAYUAN.com. You can buy the book through there, or Origin Coffee's website. And you can find me through Instagram, which is IMFREDA. I'm Freda.
Right. That's nice. I like that. As I said again, I'll say it again. Thank you so much. And yeah,
thank you, Johnny.
So much wisdom, so much passion, and just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.